Hey everybody, it's Manish from Tricky Water and Get No Kudos. I'm not doing a live chat this week, but we'll be back soon. I am going to talk about a topic that affects me as a small business owner and as a consumer, probably affects you as well. Tariffs. The first major piece of legislation signed after the Constitution was ratified was actually the Tariff Act on July 4th, 1789, enacted by George Washington. And the purpose of it was, of course, to raise revenue for this new fledgling country. Well, tariffs have been around before then, and obviously they've remained with us since then. They've changed, there's been ebbs and flows, there have been tariffs imposed, for instance, before the Great Depression. That didn't work out so well. And here we are at another inflection point in the history of this country due to tariffs. By the time you see this video, the Supreme Court may have already made a ruling about what the tariffs are in terms of who can enact them and how broad sweeping they can be. So I figured I'd take a trip down memory lane in my own business history. About 15 years ago, I launched a Bluetooth electronics company, and for the 5 years or so that it was in business, and I was importing from China at the time, I paid 0% tariff. Pretty amazing, right? Why was I paying 0%? Well, clearly there was no Bluetooth electronics lobby here in the US that was pushing for domesticating manufacturing, and there was no competition. In fact, that's why I went to China, and I paid 0%. How remarkable is that, right? That's of course changed recently. Fast forward to where we are today, 2025, started a new brand in apparel, and this t-shirt and my hoodies, well, they come from India, and I pay a 20% export tax to the government of India. I pay another 20% tariff to the US government, and then I pay shipping. So by the time I get it up my doorstep, I've probably paid almost 50% in extra fees beyond just the production of the product. But that seems to be the norm these days, and I fortunately ordered my inventory for this year at least before the major tariffs went into place, because the 20% went to 50%. Wow. So that led me to another path, and I happened to see an ad for some sneakers online. They look kind of cool, and they were marketed for, at that time, $199, marked down to, as you might see on the graphic, $51. I think I may have even paid something different, around $50 or $49. Well, that's a huge markdown, and I was very curious to see where these things are coming from and what is this brand, which I've never heard of, called Caleb and Finch. As it turns out, there's a bunch of other brands that sell the same exact sneaker, and instead of $49, some of them are selling for $39, some are selling it for as low as $19 from Temu. I've never bought anything from Temu, so I guess this third party thought that they'd create a brand around the same exact product and then mark it up a lot. So I probably lost $30, but I can't imagine who paid $199. But just in investigating this product and my own order, it took about 22 to 23 days for my shipment to get to me of these sneakers right here. Over the course of that 22 to 23 days, they came from China or Hong Kong. Then they went to JFK to Georgia, Georgia to New Jersey, and then another location in New Jersey, and then finally my home. They were not really packed with anything too substantial. This was it, right? So clearly they saved money on packaging, and there was not a lot of overhead probably. They did have a decent website, decent photography. That's what kind of interested me at first, obviously, in addition to the curiosity of what do I get for $49 sneakers. Sneakers represent a $120 billion market, and 98% of the sneakers that we consume here in the US come from overseas, many from Southeast Asia. So the purpose of tariffs, or one of the purposes, in addition to raising revenue for the US, was to try to bring manufacturing back and incentivize it. No tariffs if you make something in the US. The challenge is these sneakers were being sold for as low as $19 by somebody, shipped from China to my door. How can you possibly compete with that type of price point and still manufacture in the US? Well, I happened to see a video of a company that's in the process of launching in the US in, of all places, Henderson, Nevada, which is not exactly known as the capital of sneaker manufacturing. But they're introducing an AI and robotic-based manufacturing line, which they claim will reduce a typical process of making sneakers from 60 people down to 10 people. Well, I guess on the one hand, you brought 10 jobs back to the US, but 50 people were eliminated somewhere. And so I'm curious to see how this all nets out once this tariff issue is hopefully resolved very quickly. Because whoever's trying to bring goods and goods manufacturing back to the US does have a long and challenging road ahead of them. And I don't know how they're going to navigate it. Of course, there's robotics and there's AI, but then is that really accomplishing the goal set out by these tariffs, which is to bring jobs back? Not really. So it's a very complicated issue. I'm curious to see how this thing turns out in the hands of legislatures or the courts. But I'm also curious to hear, are you an importer? Have you experienced challenges, or have you experienced any pleasant surprises? Because I'd love to hear that. Have you been able to domesticate manufacturing or sourcing and found that your prices have gone down? Wow, that would be something I'd love to hear about. So please share your comments, share your questions, and thank you for joining me, and thank you for joining my dogs in this chat. I know they were a little bored. Hopefully I didn't bore you. Thanks, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.